Well, it's that time of the year again. Giannis Antetokounmpo allegedly asked for a trade or an exit or an exodus from the Milwaukee Bucks this offseason. And from what we're hearing, it seems like his target destination is New York. Now, Toronto Raptor fans should be no strangers to Giannis trade rumors because there was a whole swirling bunch of rumors around free agency, Giannis, Toronto. Back when Masai was in charge, Masai, of course, was a huge part of Giannis's family immigrating to Greece. And subsequently, there is that long-standing connection between them. But last I checked, Masai Ujiri is not here. So Giannis, Toronto, dead in the water, right? But actually, I reached out to somebody, and I had to dig this email back from 2021. And I said, what is Giannis looking for from the Bucks and from his potential suitor? And I got back a pretty short answer. And he said, winning, stability, culture, potential, track record. And I have inferred that that means that it makes sense that he would want to go to New York. New York has been number one, it is the biggest Greek population in North America. So that's a starter right there. A lot of people think it's Toronto. Actually, according to a quick Google search, it is New York. Up among the teams or the cities that have major Greek populations is also Boston, is also Chicago, and is also Toronto. So if Giannis is in fact going to choose his next destination to some degree, and the Bucks are going to oblige for a franchise legend to actually not just send him to Charlotte for a boatload of picks, I think it's worth exploring the fact that if New York is an option, Toronto is also an option because Toronto has all of those things as well. Toronto is a medium sized city relative to New York, but it is still a major North American market. Giannis, of course, knows a lot about the potential of Toronto to accentuate a star's reputation because he watched it happen in real time. He watched it happen as his team was up 2-0. These memories plant seeds, and those seeds mean that he probably has a pretty high understanding or opinion of the Toronto Raptors as an organization. Of course, he sat home as the team that beat him, then subsequently got a little bit lucky in the finals, let's be honest, beat the Golden State Warriors, won a championship, and launched Kawhi into the stratosphere of Michael Jordan talks that did not exist before he got to Toronto. And so I think that if I'm Giannis Antetokounmpo, I'm certainly looking at Toronto as a potential destination. But it takes two to tango. Even if Giannis did want to come to Toronto, should Toronto be looking to make a trade right now in a wide open East, admittedly, with two borderline max players already on their roster between Scottie Barnes and Brandon Ingram? Should they be looking to make a move for the soon to be 31-year-old Giannis Antetokounmpo? And I think a lot of Raptor fans immediately, every single time the Giannis trade stuff comes up, immediately jump to let's give him Scottie Barnes. Well, there's good news and bad news, right? The good news is, hold on. Let me figure out if this is good news or bad news. The good news is a Scottie Barnes centric package would be probably the best thing the Bucks can expect to get. The 2021 class has been amazing. I would argue Scottie's the best player in that class, and I'm going to prove it. I think Scottie is launching into superstardom, topic of today's live at 7 o'clock, where I explore the superstar checklist and why I think Scottie Barnes is a superstar. So just plugging in the next live during this live when we talk about Giannis Antetokounmpo and subsequently also Day'Ron Sharpe. Today, he is trade eligible. And in today's episode, we're also going to talk about Chris Paul. This is going to be a busy 24 hours for me because not only am I going to talk about this stuff here, I'm assuming a lot of this stuff is going to become a topic tomorrow on the panel. So shout outs to Player's Choice. I will be on the panel tomorrow at 11 a.m. So if you don't get what you want from me here, maybe you get what you want from me at 11 a.m. tomorrow on Player's Choice. But let's stick to Giannis for a second here. What does the trade package for Giannis look like? Well, let's consider the teams that could make a move for him. Then we'll consider some trades that fall outside of the checklist. So checklist teams that could make a trade for him among the teams that, I feel satisfy all checklists, provided the checklist hasn't changed. Granted, this checklist is from when he was 25, 26. Dudes do change. New York, Boston, Chicago, Toronto. Those are the four teams. Those 4 teams satisfy his desire to stay in the East, which I have heard, through the grapevine that he would prefer to go through the Eastern Conference. Naturally, preferring to stay in the East gives you the best chance of getting to the finals. And once you're at the finals, anything can happen. Yes, you're probably going to go up against OKC or Denver, but if Giannis is on a hit squad, then he probably thinks he has a chance, and he's possibly the best player in the league. He's one of the 3 best players in the league. I think he's 3rd or 4th, but you can make an argument for 1 or 2. So when you're that level of talent and you believe that just with a little bit of help you can get your team there, I certainly have no reason to doubt him. He has won a championship before. He has a right to believe that about himself. And so let's talk about those 4 teams. First of all, let's talk about New York. What would a New York offer even look like for Giannis? Well, I think Cat would probably have to stay in New York for this to actually work for Giannis. And I think that's probably a sticking point for some people because Karl-Anthony Towns is obviously they're not trading Jalen Brunson. You need Jalen Brunson with Giannis. So Milwaukee would probably ask for Cat and a boatload of picks, but that probably doesn't do it for you, does it? Like is Karl-Anthony Towns selling tickets in Milwaukee? Really? This is a guy who just got traded for Julius Randle a year ago. Like this much cannot have been done for Karl-Anthony Towns' reputation. And obviously, Cat has come into this season and played. He's been okay. He's been okay. He's not playing like a top 10 player like he was last year. He is also 30-ish, around Giannis's age. This is not exactly the exciting offer that I'm looking for if I'm, John Horst and the Bucks. You have to look at this from the Bucks side. They have to sell this to their fan base. They have to sell tickets. This is a small market team. This is a team that requires something of substance to come back to fill the seats. Something of substance to come back to say we didn't get absolutely fleeced. They're not going to rob Babcock this. Rest in peace, Rob Babcock, where they trade Vince Carter for, in this case, Giannis Antetokounmpo for Aaron Williams, and a couple first-round picks and a big, who's got a big name who doesn't show up. So in a lot of ways, I think the deal would have to be Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. Of course, neither one of those guys are top 20 players in the league. Neither one of them are major bucket getters. Neither one of them are stars or superstars. And so I think the Knicks offer just might not be good enough. Even if they add a bunch of picks to it and swaps, the Knicks are a good team. Their picks are not going to be that good. So you have to look at this from the perspective of if I'm the Bucks, I have to look at Giannis and say, well, what's your next option? Well, then we get to Boston. And I think Boston has a better offer where they can probably do Jaylen Brown, Peyton Pritchard, and some picks. And I think Jaylen Brown, probably a top 4, top 5 shooting guard in the league, a major bucket getter, putting up all NBA numbers this year, a max contract that can match Giannis. And if you're Giannis, you just hold out hope that Jason Tatum comes back this season. And obviously, you still have Derek White there. And then you try to fill out your roster. I think that makes a ton of sense. We've heard tons of rumors about Jaylen Brown wanting, to have his team, to have his own team. We've seen clunky fit in the past between him and Jason Tatum. It's a championship organization. It's a legacy organization. They have a huge Greek population. I could certainly see Giannis wanting to go to Boston. I could certainly see Boston wanting to buy on Giannis. And I don't think that they're completely sold on Jaylen Brown being there long-term. Peyton Pritchard is a huge, huge get. Point guard of the future. They already got Ryan Rollins there. Ryan Rollins been hooping. So maybe you run Ryan Rollins at the 2, Peyton Pritchard at the 1, Miles Turner at the 5, and you just be a playoff team, and you just hope that Jaylen Brown ages really, really well. It's not super exciting, but it's something. What about Chicago? Chicago is interesting because they do have the type of transition offense that would probably suit Giannis. They have the type of spacing big that already suits Giannis. He's already had a lot of success with Brook Lopez. You could have a lot of success with Nikola Vucevic. You would have to give up Kobe White. Montes Buzelis would have to be in that trade. Noah Senge would have to be in that trade. And every pick that you have has to be in that trade because Montes Buzelis is not exactly having the greatest year himself. So you fill in a whole bunch of roster spots, and Giannis basically takes a drive across the state border, leaves Wisconsin, goes to Illinois, ends up in Michael Jordan's old franchise and tries to hang up the 7th banner in Chicago. That makes some sense. I think that can make a lot of sense. I don't know if what the Bulls have to offer is exciting enough, but Kobe White and Montes Buzelis is certainly something. I mean, you're getting 2 former lottery picks. You're getting 2 young players, something to build around. We can talk about Toronto's package a little bit later, but let's explore a little outside the box. There is Miami and Orlando. No state tax in Florida, so we got to talk about the no state tax teams. Miami could certainly make an offer of Tyler Hero and make it at least competitive. Hero is from the area, so that immediately helps to sell some tickets. He's a hometown kid. I think you would have to probably throw Khalil Ware in there. You might have to throw Jaime Jaquez. And at that point, you'd have to ask, okay, how good are we? If Bam and Giannis, who, kind of a clunky fit, if you ask me, but sure, it could work. You'd form a pretty dynamic duo there. With Norman Powell and Andrew Wiggins, like, what are we doing here? Right? It could make some sense. I think you get into the big leagues with Orlando because Orlando could offer a star, but not a perfect one. And that's Paolo Banchero. Now, it's not a secret to me that there's a couple teams in the Southeast Division that have looked a lot better without their highest paid player, and that's Atlanta and Orlando. Orlando has looked better without Paolo. And I got news for you. They've looked better without Paolo many times throughout the last 3-4 years. Giannis is an upgraded version of Paolo. It accelerates their timeline. They've obviously made a win now move for Desmond Bane. I think Desmond Bane plus Paolo plus Jalen Suggs, Desmond Bane plus Franz plus Jalen Suggs plus Giannis launches you into that's the favorite to come out of the East easily. Paolo gives Milwaukee a young star to build around. And if Paolo is on the books, if Paolo is on the move, if he's made available by Jeff Weltman, I think that is a really interesting offer, and Milwaukee would be stupid not to consider it because if you're comparing Paolo, the youth, the upside, the projections, the potential to be a Giannis type player, you can sell it very easily to your fan base. I don't think anyone would be super mad in Milwaukee if you already won the championship. You won the championship. Giannis is a great player, but he's 31. We get a 23-year-old ascending star in Paolo Banchero. I think you'd have to be happy. And if you're the Magic, yeah, you cry a few tears about what could have been with Franz and Paolo, but let's just be honest, it hasn't really worked. But does Franz and Giannis solve your spacing problems? Are Jalen Suggs and whatever the hell else you got there, Tyus Jones, Anthony Black, like this sounds like a spacing nightmare as well. They do have the spacing big in Wendell Carter, again, in theory, they do have that. So I think among the options that we've explored so far, Orlando definitely has the best offer if they're willing to put Paolo or Franz in that deal. That's a hell of an offer. I just don't know how it looks for Orlando and how many picks are also attached. Also, it's worth noting Anthony Black's having a hell of a season, so if he's involved in that trade, that makes it a no-brainer. That's a mountain of an offer. And I think Orlando has already shown a willingness to be aggressive. Their picks are pretty much gone. They traded most of them away for Desmond Bane. So this would be doubling down. It's a good idea. It's a really decent idea. Moving on to Atlanta. Atlanta has a lot of great young pieces, and obviously the move back has to be Trae Young, but it has to be Trae Young and a whole bunch of other stuff because Trae Young's value right now is in the toilet, and I don't think Trae Young for Giannis is moving anybody. So you're probably throwing in Dyson Daniels in that deal, and you're probably having to throw in a boatload of picks. You might have to throw in Onyeka Okongwu, and you might have to also eat some contracts. Does that give Milwaukee enough to start over? Trae Young, Dyson Daniels, and a bunch of stuff. Maybe. You're probably taking Bobby Portis back the other way. You got Kristaps Porzingis there. You got Jalen Johnson. But does Jalen Johnson plus Giannis work? It's certainly a very, very big front court. Jalen playing the 4, 3, but more a point forward. Giannis also playing point forward. Those two demons attacking in transition. It could be very interesting. Moving out of the Eastern Conference for a moment, you got to look at the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs have De'Aaron Fox, who has a mountain of a contract. They have Victor Wembanyama. I think internally the San Antonio Spurs are starting to evaluate that maybe Victor Wembanyama's career is not going to be as long as they think it is. Now, again, this is premature. He has only been in the league for 3 years, but he's already had a blood clot scare. He's currently out with an injury. He is 7'6", 7'7", 7'5", depending on who you believe. And so ultimately, it does come down to How long is your window really? And are you willing to waste it on development reps for Steph Castle, Dylan Harper, et cetera? Now, Dylan Harper, I think, has proven himself to be the guard of the future. I say guard of the future, which is to say he is the most important guard in my future if I'm San Antonio. If I'm doing the calculus, San Antonio, my most important player, Victor Wembanyama. My second most important player, Dylan Harper. My third most important player, somewhere between De'Aaron Fox and Steph Castle. And then we can go from there to the Devin Vassell's, the Keldon Johnsons, et cetera, et cetera. So if Fox and Steph Castle is on the table, I have to look at this if I'm Milwaukee and say, this is our chance. We get a proven commodity in Fox. We get a future piece and a former rookie of the year in Steph Castle. How can we say no to this? What about the other Texas teams? Well, there are a couple of other Texas teams that are pretty interesting Giannis fits too. And again, no state tax could be appealing when you make $60 million a year. Dallas is interesting. Dallas is interesting because they also have a franchise player they're looking to get rid of who would probably do similar things to Giannis, and that is Anthony Davis. Now, obviously, Anthony Davis's value is a lot lower than it was a year ago when he was abruptly traded for Luka Doncic around this time last year. And so we could probably say it's going to take a hell of a lot more than Anthony Davis. Cooper Flag is presumably off the table, so it would take Anthony Davis and everything else you got. And I don't think it's going to beat the Spurs offer. What about Houston? Now, Houston made a huge win now move to get in Kevin Durant. They're getting a resurgent second year from Reed Shepherd. I think Reed Shepherd is very good. I've always felt he was very good. Reed Shepherd might be the point guard of the future. Fred VanVleet is, I don't know what Fred VanVleet is at this point. He could be medically retired this time next year. He could be completely washed, or he could be a wonderful comeback story. But right now he's injured, and he is a $25 million contract as far as I'm concerned. That's salary filler. That allows you to trade young players like Tari Eason. That allows you to trade young players who are not yet extended like Amen Thompson. That also allows you to trade Reed Shepherd. They've got a very interesting package, but I think if I'm Milwaukee, I'm going to need Alperen Sengun back. One international star to another. Sengun is nowhere near the talent that Giannis is, but he is a hell of a talent. He's currently playing like a top 15 player in the league. And this is exactly the type of young player from the 2021 draft that I would actually want back in a trade for Giannis. And so if the Houston Rockets are willing to buy into the idea of pairing Giannis with KD, a pairing that fits very well, in my opinion, from a basketball synergy standpoint, fits very well. If they're willing to go that big, and they're willing to double down on their rebounding advantage over the entire league with Steven Adams and Clint Capella and all the big wings that they have with Jabari Smith. Even if they were willing to put Jabari in that deal, Jabari plus Alperen Sengun, I think it's probably overkill. But honestly, how do you beat that offer? The Lakers sound interesting. They don't really have a great offer. LeBron's not going the other way. I think he has a no trade clause. And quite frankly, I don't think Austin Reeves makes anywhere near enough money, although I think Austin would be a great get for them. It would be Austin plus every big contract on their book, from Gabe Vincent to Rui Hachimura to all those contracts. And I still don't think you can make the money work. So it would require one of those two big salaries, which is LeBron or Luka going back, and LeBron and Luka are going nowhere. So I think from a financial standpoint, as much as it's exciting to see, Giannis plus Luka link up in LA, and I think it would be very good for the league to have that type of dynamic duo in Los Angeles, I still think they probably don't have the pieces. And I don't think the Clippers have the pieces either, if I'm being honest. I don't think the Clippers have the pieces. I don't think they have the picks, and I don't think the Lakers have the picks. We look at a team on the West Coast like the Portland Trailblazers, and I think that they actually make a ton of sense for him. They do have his former teammate Damian Lillard. They do have his former teammate Drew Holiday. That's kind of interesting. They do have Denny Avdia. They do have Donovan Clingan. They do have a boatload of young players like Tamani Kamara. They have Shaden Sharp, who could be the type of bucket-getting scoring guard that you need to sell tickets. Portland makes way too much sense, which is why I probably think it's not going to happen. Plus, I don't think Giannis is looking to go to a bottom feeder right now and try to work his way up the Western Conference. There's probably a lot of question marks around Dame's health, Drew's age, et cetera, et cetera. But Tamani plus Denny is a hell of a package. And if I'm being honest, Tumani and Denny is probably a better package right now than OG and Mikal Bridges or whatever the hell the Knicks are offering, especially if you throw in Shaedon Sharpe with there or throw in Hanson Yang. I have already pitched this Portland offer many times. Hanson Yang, if he could even prove, if the Bucks even believe that Hanson Yang could be a starting center at any point in his career, the marketing potential for a small market team to have China's next big hope is a huge draw. If nothing else, even if Hanson Yang is a bust, even if he amounts to nothing more than a serviceable starting center, the market value alone is huge on a player like that, still on his rookie contract. So I don't know what Hanson's going to become, but it's certainly worth exploring if you're the Bucks. The Portland Trailblazers are interesting. The Phoenix Suns have a boatload of young assets they could throw your way, from Jalen Green to Kaman Malawach. There's like a lot. And they may actually be a sneaky offer because they are a pretty big market team. Phoenix is one of the 10 biggest markets in the United States. They have a lot of appealing offers, and they also have the perfect pairing with him and Devin Booker. Devin Booker is looking to win a championship in Phoenix, never won one. Giannis can come in and help him do that. So there's a lot of options, and you better believe when a top 5 player still in his prime becomes available, every team is going to call with their best offer. So let's talk about the Toronto Raptors. We're 21 minutes into this. Let's talk about the Toronto Raptors. What can the Raptors actually offer? Well, obviously, the one offer that beats a lot of those other offers, if not all their offers, is Scottie Barnes. Like, that's the obvious one. But you're on a Pensare basketball stream. So even entertaining Scottie Barnes hypothetical trades is not something that we do around here. We are not Hello and Welcome. We are not Raptors Republic. We are not those channels. Those channels, they will, and they have in the past, explored Scottie trades. We don't do that here. We don't talk about trading dudes that we think are going to win MVPs when they're 24. We don't do that. And if I was an OKC fan, I wouldn't have been talking about trading Shea 3 years ago. If I was a Milwaukee fan, I wouldn't have been talking about trading Giannis for whoever the hell was coming up 5, 8 years ago, 9 years ago. I think I know what I see with Scottie, and I ain't trading him for nothing. But what about non-Scottie trades? So a talking point that's become pretty popular around Raptor space, but I believe, and I could be wrong, originated on this channel, is that as you get better, and this feels pretty logical, so it's weird that I'm trying to copyright this, but I feel like I've heard a lot of people echo this sentiment, and I don't remember anyone saying it before I did. But the idea that the Raptors pieces become more valuable as they win more games. I think that's just logic. That just makes sense. The way people talk about Brandon Ingram right now is very different than the way people were talking about Brandon Ingram last year. Is he having a better season than he was having last year? Hell no, he is not. He's not shooting better. He doesn't have better analytics. He doesn't have better lineup data. Nothing has changed. The only thing that's changed is he's winning in Toronto. He wasn't winning with the Pelicans. He's healthy in Toronto. He wasn't healthy with the Pelicans. When you're healthy and winning and you're putting up decent stats, shit changes. The narrative changes. The narrative has also changed, hopefully, around Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett. And so the question becomes, hypothetically, if those big names are not available, if the Alperen Şengün's and the Paolo Bancheros and all that stuff is not available, do the Raptors have a trade package that does not involve Scottie Barnes, but involves every pick imaginable? And the Raptors own all their picks. So every pick imaginable literally means all the picks. Does that deal work? Let's construct a trade. So I'm actually going to open up the trade machine and I'm going to give you like my best trade, and let's see if it actually works. Okay. So I promise it's not going to turn into a trade machine episode. We will talk about Chris Paul. We will talk about Chris Paul because I am actually one of those rare, crazy people that think Chris Paul to Toronto is a really good idea. Okay. So let's see here. Did I freeze up there for a second? Am I good now? Should be good. Okay. Bucks, Toronto. Let's widen this out. And let's try to make this work. So Giannis makes $54 million. That's one contract that's definitely going this way. One contract that's definitely going the other way. Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett. Now you're going to eat some salary. You're going to need to eat some bad salary. And there's not a lot of bad salary to eat. So you're probably going to eat Bobby Portis. Pause. Okay. So 60 million, 67 million coming in. That makes sense. Okay. Now, how do we sweeten this deal? You give them, and now unprotected. Sorry, these are not going to be swapped. 2027 swap, 2028 unprotected, 2029 swap, 2030. Quickly, Barrett, Boyles, Dick, 5 picks. I still don't think this is enough, if I'm being honest. You might have to add more. I hate to say it, it's probably going to cost you Jacoby. And you take back Torian Prince or Gary Harris, one of those guys. Can we get back here? Can we just get back Jericho Sims? Fuck. AJ Green ain't going nowhere. Amir Coffee. Oh, never mind. Giannis is coming back, so we got to take Thanasis back. Fuck. Okay. Now, this deal is probably going to say failed for one reason, which is 2028 and 2029 I'm missing a first round pick. What did I do here? Hold up. Let's try this again. Swap 2028 Bucks, 2029 swap. Oh, they don't have a swap. That makes sense. Shit. Okay. So can't trade that. So you trade 2030 unprotected. And then you trade a 2031 swap. Does that work? Why are we getting fails? Okay. Oh. Bobby Portis can't be traded until December 15th. Thanasis can't be traded until December 15th. Okay, so this deal can be done December 15th. Okay. This is a deal. Okay. I'm not saying it's a great deal. Certainly, if you are Rob, you are trading the whole team. How the fuck is this the whole team? This is not the whole team. It's 2 starters and 3 bench players. Relax. It's not the whole team. You got minimum contracts, and there just so happens to be a really great point guard who's 40 plus years old right now, who just might be becoming a free agent. Look, you can fill out a ton of your roster spots and shit with veterans. Okay. So the question becomes, how far does a team with Giannis Antetokounmpo, Brandon Ingram, Scottie Barnes, Jakob Poeltl, and no point guard? Well, not no point guard. You got Jamal Shed and potentially Chris Paul coming through. Maybe Chris Paul would be welcome to coming on and joining up with the big 3 of Giannis, Brandon Ingram, and Scottie Barnes. It would be very interesting, to say the least. Now, in order for this to work, obviously, BI becomes the 2, Scottie becomes the 3, Giannis becomes the 4. You need penetration. Giannis is a great driver. He gets paint touches at will. Scottie has really elevated himself. This would open up Brandon Ingram to be extremely efficient. Right now, Brandon Ingram is not efficient because Brandon Ingram is getting the brunt of defensive attention. With Giannis and Scottie on the court, Brandon Ingram would be a third option for the defense or the second option for the defense. Either way, however you want to slice it, Brandon Ingram is never going to be more open in his life than he would be with Giannis and Scottie. You would need elite shooting to fill out the roster. Bobby Portis becomes a very good backup big in this scenario as a backup 4 coming off the bench. You don't really have that right now. Jonathan Mobo would need to immediately become a contributor. You would need Ochai Abaji traded for something. You would lose all of your picks. And so basically, you're committing to a vision from 2026 to 2031 where you're going to lose 3 first round picks and you're going to get probably a few bad ones, but you're going to be a really good team. So the swaps don't matter as much. Like, I don't trust Milwaukee to be great. So the swaps are like kind of like fake picks, right? They look good. When you make the trade, it's like, oh, we got 5 first round picks. It's like, no, you got swaps and you're the worst team. So you're not going to want to swap. So it doesn't really fucking matter. Right. So don't think of this as, oh, we just traded 5 first round picks for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Think of this as actually you trading 3 first round picks and 2 potential disastrous swaps if you end up being really bad. And you're trading away 3 previous first round picks in Jacoby, Grady, and Colin Murray Boyles. And you're trading away 2 very serviceable starters in RJ and Quickly. Now, does this type of deal appeal to a small market team like Milwaukee? Probably not. Is Scottie plus Giannis a great pairing? Probably not. But is this deal, in theory, think about this deal, look it out on paper. IQ is a really good player. RJ is a really good player. I don't think either one of these players are in a different stratosphere than Mikal Bridges at this point. Is OG Anunoby worth more than CMB, Grady, Jacoby, and a whole bunch of picks? I don't think so. So if the going price for Giannis right now from the Knicks side is Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby, I believe this deal is better than that deal. Personally, I believe this deal is better than that deal. And I think it gives you a clear window to have the best player in the Eastern Conference. I think it also gives you a window, shout outs to Scottie Barnes, to have a future league MVP on your team. I promise I'm not laughing because I don't believe it. I do believe it, but I understand I understand my audience. I know some of you are having a hard time believing that Scottie Barnes is really going to be that great. I also think, this, I mean, in theory, this makes Scottie the third option. And Scottie Barnes is the third option, setting everybody up. You don't really even need a traditional point guard because Giannis, Scottie, BI are all kind of point forwards. So, in a lot of ways, I think this deal catapults you into unguardable territory. There is no team this side of reality that can guard Giannis, Scottie, and Brandon Ingram. You just don't have anybody. I don't think OKC can guard this team. So can this team guard? Yeah, sure they can. Scottie and Giannis on the weak side, blocking every single shot. Yeah, it works. The Bucks probably still hold out for Scottie. So this is my best deal. I don't know if I would do it, if I'm being honest. I'm not the biggest Giannis Antetokounmpo fan. I don't know if you can tell from my coverage. I would make this deal and add 16 more picks if it meant getting Shea in Toronto, because I believe in Shea like that. I might have even made this deal plus 2 more picks for Luka, because Luka's in his 20s, even if Nico Harrison would have you believe that he's on Ozempic and is 295 pounds. I'd make this deal for I might make something like this for Chet even. But Giannis being 31 worries me. What about Ingram, CMB, and RJ plus picks? Now, that's interesting because, that makes a lot more sense, actually, if we think about it. Because if I can get over my own emotional need to keep Brandon Ingram in Toronto for some reason, if I just remove Jacoby and IQ and instead add, I don't know, Brandon Ingram to this deal, it probably still works because you're giving up 69 million, you're taking back 77, so it probably still works from a cap perspective. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it works. It works. It totally works. And this deal might be more appealing from the Bucks side as well. I mean, you get 2 mega bucket getters in Brandon Ingram and RJ Barrett. You get 2 major young pieces, and you get all of Toronto's picks. This could make a lot of sense. And you don't have to move Ryan Rollins to the bench to pair him, and you already have what possibly is your point guard of the future. So you would just be getting like 4 pieces, replenishing all of your depth, getting rid of Bobby Portis's contract, and getting rid of the Antetokounmpo brothers. This would make some sense, actually. This would make some sense. Daniel Franklin saying the Raptors get under the tax. Yeah, the Raptors do technically get under the tax. Do the Raptors get under the tax with this deal? Yeah, they do. 67 million coming in, 69 million coming in, 77 million going out. That makes sense. Yeah, the Raptors would get under the tax. Super Yadad, Yadid saying absolutely no thanks to a Giannis trade. Too much. Well, top 5 players don't grow on trees, my friend. Giannis Antetokounmpos do not come up for trade every year, frankly. You might be lucky every 2-3 years a player like this becomes available. Bad trade. It's actually a bad trade from the Bucks perspective, if I'm honest. I think both teams say no to this, but I think the Raptors would say, this is worth exploring. Scottie plus Giannis, and we get to keep Emmanuel quickly, which means we get to preserve the shooting. We move Giannis to the 4, Scottie to the 3. Giannis is hitting his threes this year to some extent. Your spacing is kind of a nightmare, so you're happy to have Bobby Portis. You still have Sandro Mamukelashvili coming off the bench. You can probably just give Thanasis, Garrett Temple's towel to wave. And yeah, you lose two young players you obviously believe in a lot, and Grady Dick and Colin Murray Boyles, and that could definitely come back and bite you in the ass. But I don't see either one of these guys necessarily becoming like superstars. CMB might become an all-star. He might become better than OG Anunoby, and you'll live to regret that like 3 years, 4 years down the line. But at which point you'll still have Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think Giannis is going to be a perfectly good player until he's about 35, 34 years old. I think after that, it's anyone's bet. He's no longer necessarily like that singular force that can lift you to the playoffs by himself, but that's why you have Emmanuel Quickley and Scottie Barnes and Jakob Poeltl and all the players you keep. You're not totally gutting your team here. I mean, you keep Jacoby Walter here, who would inevitably move into the starting lineup, and he's been doing a pretty good job in the starting lineup. You're basically trading a whole bunch of picks and Brandon Ingram for a backup stretch big and Giannis Antetokounmpo. I don't think this is a bad deal at all. Now, obviously, this is delusional, and the Bucks would have to be very, very high on Brandon Ingram. Now, the reason I say the Bucks calculus might be a little bit different than you're thinking, because obviously in your mind, maybe if you're running this on 2K, you're like, my God, man, they're going to ask for I don't know. They're going to ask for like 15 first round picks. They can get this and that. They can get 12 young players. Okay, man, this is a small market team. They need to be able to sell this to their fan base. Now, Brandon Ingram, big name, was a huge name in 2021 when KD came up. And allegedly at the time, the Pelicans were not willing to move off of him. Ingram and Barrett have an image problem right now. So the Giannis Antetokounmpo trade, allegedly, according to Shams Charania, is going to be resolved over the next few weeks. This is going to be a situation that's going to be resolved in the next few weeks. Now, I don't know if Shams is right or wrong, because what I'd heard previously was this could be something that drags on to the next offseason. But obviously, with the Bucks losing to the Wizards the way they did, Giannis looking totally disinterested, it kind of feels like a little bit like watching OG Anunoby in his last 2 weeks with Toronto, where it kind of feels like he feels like he's playing for the opponent right now, almost, right? Like if he thinks he's going to the Eastern Conference, every win he adds to the Milwaukee Bucks total is just fucking over his next team. So I don't know if he's necessarily that cold, but it didn't feel like, I mean, I didn't watch the whole game between the Bucks and the Wizards, but I watched enough of it to be able to tell you he didn't look like himself. So I guess tonight will be telling. The Bucks do play today. They are up against, a winnable opponent in a sense. So we'll see. We'll see. I think they're going up against Dallas, if I'm not mistaken. Is it Dallas tonight? Either way, it'll be very interesting to see Giannis's performance. And Alexander B saying also Luka is out tomorrow against the Raptors. What the fuck? Bro. Why? Because he don't want to get locked up by Scottie Barnes. That's why. Luka knows. Life will be very, very tough. Okay. We actually do need to talk about Detroit. This is a very, very good option. It's not quite the market. And if my friend was right about, what Giannis wants, I'm not sure Detroit, given that they have been a laughingstock of an organization, prior to last year for almost a decade, necessarily fills the quota. But it does fill the quota of him wanting to play with a lead initiator like Cade Cunningham. It would feel the need to have a stretch big like Isaiah Stewart, but it would definitely take Jalen Duren. It would take Jalen Duren, and it would probably take Asar Thompson. And if Asar and Jalen and Jaden Ivey and Tobias Harris is the offer, then I have to say, sorry to Raptor fans, the Detroit Pistons have the best offer. At which point, some people would argue they would have two of the top 4 or 5 players in the Eastern Conference. They're already the number 1 seed. They haven't won a championship, so Giannis can't be accused of bandwagoning. Their last championship was in 2004. He would be seen as the best player on that team. Cade would be seen as the best number 2 option in the league by far. And I think at that point, they would have to be the favorites to come out of the East, right? He has personal reasons for being out, according to reports. Well, I hope everything is okay with Luka, but in the sake of comedy, I just want to say that those personal reasons are, and 100% are, that he does not want to get locked up by Scottie Barnes. Luka Duck and Scottie is my, until you tell me why Luka is out tomorrow, that's what I'm going to believe. Okay, that's what I'm going to say. Tyler Young saying, proud to say I was in the top 0.2% of Pensare viewers this year. That's awesome, man. Loki King saying it's the birth of his second child. Well, then I'm sorry to say, I think his child is afraid for his future father to be locked up by Scottie Barnes. But for real, congrats to Luka. That's awesome. Ingram plus RJ plus CMB plus firsts. I think that's pretty much right. For real. I think that's around it. He had 9 turnovers last night. There you go. LeBron gonna get to smoke that now with Reeves. Well, LeBronto is definitely not coming back, and I have full faith that the Raptors are going to mop the floor with the Lakers and dominating and old man LeBron James tomorrow. LeBron does not get back in transition. This is the number 1 transition offense in the league. Kind of hoping RJ Barrett can start playing soon because, I don't know. If this team keeps winning without him, I don't necessarily think that necessarily helps his trade value. But, everyone's saying the right stuff, right? Do the Lakers have good bigs? They most certainly do not. Jackson Hayes and DeAndre Ayton are not moving me at all. But Ayton's been having a pretty good season. I talked a lot of shit about Ayton, and I even said that Gershon Yabusele was better than DeAndre Ayton on PC, and I got laughed off the room for it. I think my personal bias against Ayton is just I don't like the guy. I just don't like the guy. Paul Blunt said, "I'm getting a Pensare tattoo. Represent." You do that, man. Make sure to tag me on Instagram when you do. Appreciate you. What do you think of Jalen Duren? I love him. I think he is extremely. Yak is out. What? Oh man. Damn, that sucks, man. Yeah, we better trade for Day'Ron Sharpe. Well, okay. That cues me up perfectly for my next segment. All right. So two things. Number one, Chris Paul has been sent home. He tweeted out last night at like 3 a.m. or something. Apparently, I've been sent home by the Clippers. There's a lot to this story to unpack, so we'll make it very brief. Allegedly, Chris Paul is a little bit of a prickly asshole when he's losing, and he didn't like the way things were going in, LA Clipperland. Who would? Who should? That organization is an absolute joke, from how they're run to, their organization to their front office and everything. Just how they work is very amateur. And I understand that the veneer of, we're going to spend money on the Intuit Dome and we have the super rich billionaire owner and all that stuff. Yeah, it's great, man. It's great until the feds catch up with you and your entire organization is subject to, an investigation by the FBI and shit. At which point you're a clown show. And then you sign a whole bunch of geriatrics because, frankly, the Clippers have been way more concerned with being relevant than they have been with being good for a very long time. This is kind of what happens when you're the ugly stepchild in your own city. The Clippers are like the Brooklyn Nets. You can't be in the same market as the Nets. Sorry, as the Knicks. Like, I say this as a former New Yorker. Nobody cares about the Brooklyn Nets. and nobody cares about the LA Clippers. It's just not how it works. Okay. They may sell out a few, games every now and again. There might have been some incidental hype, but going to the Clippers was such a dumb move by Kawhi Leonard to begin with. But nevertheless, probably should have stayed in Toronto, if I'm being honest. But nevertheless, Chris Paul allegedly went after his teammates, was not on speaking terms with Ty Lue, and then became very, very critical of his front office. At which point, Chris Paul started to get benched. Chris Paul started to get DMPCDs. Chris Paul, obviously, his numbers have fallen off a cliff. And this is his farewell tour. This is his final year. So Chris Paul has been sent home. He has been asked to stay away from the Clippers. The most professional point guard of my generation that I have watched play is Chris Paul. The best point guard over the last 20 years, in my opinion, has been Chris Paul. If not Chris Paul, then Steph Curry. But Steph Curry, number one, Chris Paul, number two. To me, he's better overall as a career than Jason Kidd, Steve Nash. I'm putting him above everybody but Steph, and honestly, sometimes even Steph. I have a higher opinion of Chris Paul than literally anyone you're ever going to see cover this game. I think he's a top 25 player of all time. I think his impact has to be studied via documentary crew. The ability of this man to teach the game means that, in my opinion, once he's done playing, he's going to become the best coach of all time. Chris is one of the smartest players who has ever played the game, period. Hova saying John Stockton is better than Chris Paul. Fuck no, he's not. No, he's not. No, Chris is amazing. And I say this as someone who, he's around my age. I mean, he's a little bit older than me, so that was the cool thing. Like he's a little bit older than me, so I got to look up to him. I used to watch Chris Paul. I used to try to model my entire game after Chris Paul. I can tell you Chris Paul has like what he was doing last year for the San Antonio Spurs defies any amount of age-defying logic. I mean, you can say whatever the hell you want about what LeBron's doing. LeBron's 6'9". LeBron's a genetic freak. Chris Paul is he's a mental freak, right? So I think Chris's ability to teach the game is so understated. I want you to think about what has happened when Chris has gone to places. When Chris got to, the Hornets, previously New Orleans Hornets, right? Turned that team into a winner pretty much overnight. By his second year, they were a winner. I think he made everybody better. But what does it actually mean to make people better? Does it mean they're better with you, or you make them so much better, which is to say you challenge them in practice? Chris is like a 6-foot Michael Jordan. Like the clearest way I could say it is he's the closest player to Michael Jordan. He just didn't win championships. Like it sounds crazy when I'm saying it out loud, right? Chris Paul, Michael Jordan, like, oh my God, what are we talking about? He's got that. If Michael Jordan was 6 feet tall, he would be Chris Paul, basically. He turned the Clippers into a winner. He's turned every single organization around. And every time he leaves an organization, they just magically look a lot better. What he did for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, only Shai can say. But I've heard what he's done for Shai and what he did for Shai as a young player, and I think he fundamentally changed his entire career. I think Chris's greatest gift, one of his greatest gifts, is that he can teach you the game from his vantage point, and his vantage point is disadvantaged. Does that make sense? He's a 6-foot guard, and if Chris Paul was 6'7", he'd be the greatest player of all time. I 100% believe that. Like, he was so athletic. It's just the size. He's 6 feet tall. His ability to read the game, see the game, defend the game, read angles, do scouting reports, everything. Like, he is so insane. He made Blake Griffin into a point forward. Blake Griffin was not a point forward before he played with Chris Paul. He turned Shai Gilgeous-Alexander into a point guard. Shai was not going to be a point guard prior to playing with Chris Paul. He has like a transfer gene. I don't know how to explain it. Last year, he played with Steph Castle and Victor Wembanyama. This year, the Spurs are a winner. And I believe that they are a winner because Chris Paul spent an entire year teaching that team how to win. He teaches you how to practice. He holds you accountable. He challenges your lazy habits. And I've always believed that functional people do very badly in dysfunctional environments. If there is one wish that I have for the Toronto Raptors right now, it is that when Chris Paul is waived, that the Raptors make the first call and say, would you be willing to come here and give us what you've given all these other teams? We will value you because we have CMB, Brandon Ingram, Scottie Barnes, Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett. We have the most Chris Paul like balls of clay. The Raptors are like a whole bunch of balls of clay. And this dude could come in and literally teach every one of these players how to play basketball. Because I think half this team does not know how to play basketball. Jamal Shed needs Chris Paul. Brandon Ingram needs Chris Paul. RJ Barrett needs Chris Paul. Emmanuel Quickly needs Chris Paul more than Jaylen Brown needs Turkey. More than Jalen Suggs needs Turkey. More than fucking Devin Carter needs Turkey. Like, for real, for real. Chucky Hepburn needs Chris Paul. CMB needs Chris Paul. Darko needs Chris Paul. Pat Delaney needs Chris Paul. Jama Malalelu needs Chris Paul. The Toronto Raptors need Chris Paul. I'm going to say it right now. Toronto Raptors need Chris Paul. And you will not feel the impact when he gets here. You will feel the impact 2 years from now. Because 2 years from now, you're going to have a whole bunch of players who are a lot better because he was here. Jacoby Walter. Okay, first of all, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in Kentucky, Jacoby Walter in Baylor. I know what Shai became, but can we talk about where Shai was before he met Chris Paul, before he played on the same team as Chris Paul? Now, I'm not going to give all of the credit to Chris Paul, but I think Shai himself, if he was on this podcast, would tell you that no single teammate he's ever had has had more of an instrumental impact in terms of his ability to slow down the game and help him understand how to find angles. Because everything that I am watching Shai Gilgeous-Alexander do right now on a basketball court, like what happened last night? I was on playback. The Thunder were up against the Golden State Warriors who were without Steph Curry, right? Okay. I was on playback and the Thunder were up 19 going into halftime. And everybody on the panel who was up there, from Jordan to Ox to Chill, said, this is about to be a 20-point blowout. And I said, just wait, the rubber band effect. The Warriors will come back. And lo and behold, we are in the fourth quarter and the Warriors are up by 3. And I am sitting there saying, please, 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 please put in SGA, put in SGA. I'm a big Thunder fan, by the way, just a heads up. And I don't like the Warriors. So obviously I'm rooting for OKC here. I'm rooting for the Canadian boys, Lou Dort and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I'm rooting for my doppelganger, Mark Dagnall. Okay. Me and Mark Dagnall, we're secretly brothers. So I am rooting for this team. And I see Shai sitting on the bench. And I see that lead go from 2 to 4 to 5. And I'm just like, yo, Mark Dagnall, you playing with fire, man. And I see Shai walk to the halftime, to the scorer's table. And I say, oh, thank God. Down 5 minutes to go. Shai walked to the scorer's table, came into the game. I think it was 6 minutes or 5 minutes. And the second he checked into the game, the entire game flipped. And from that point on, I believe it was plus 15. They went from down 5 to up 10 or 11. They won the game by 11. His ability to do that was not evident at all to anybody who watched him in Kentucky, nor was it evident to anyone who watched him during his rookie season. I was very high on Shai pre-draft. I was not this high on Shai. Never in a million years could I have seen him becoming an MVP. He did not have more natural talent than Brandon Ingram or Scottie Barnes. What he has is honed talent. What he has is slowed down the game to an extreme degree. What he has is worked on his flexibility, dexterity, ambidexterity, proprioception to a level that is almost unfair. What he has done is he has grinded himself Kobe Bryant style into someone that he should have never been, because he is not what he is because of athleticism. He is what he is because the game is slower for him than everybody else. And you know what I'm seeing? I'm seeing something similar happening with Stephon Castle. And I saw something very similar happen with Blake Griffin, not to the same degree. And I just can't help but notice that this is probably a Chris Paul thing. So having Chris Paul come into this locker room and do that for Scottie Barnes and Jacoby Walter and Jamal Shedd and Emmanuel Quickly would be insane because all of these players are insanely talented. I think they need that key to unlock them. And I don't think that there's ever been a roster that is more primed and ready for Chris Paul than this one. And I think this could be his greatest gift to the world of basketball, which is to create a generation of players who understand the game better in a system that is attempting to play pure basketball. Let's not forget that too. CP3 also turned Devin Booker into a point guard. Chris Paul's impact on winning, on culture, cannot be understated. I refuse to let that slanderous, ridiculous clown show of an organization try and besmirch his good name. Okay. Who has a higher IQ, CP or Rondo? Chris Paul. But Rondo is very close. Rajon Rondo is one of the smartest players I've ever seen in my life. Rajon, CP3, Nikola Jokic, Jason Kidd. These are the smartest players I've ever seen in my life. That's it. That's the entire list. Young man said, bro, you're right about all this, but do you really think CP3 would just say, I'm going to stay home if you got sent to Toronto? It's possible. But that's why I think the first call would help. Right? No LeBron? No. I do not think LeBron is on that level. No. LeBron's smart. He's insanely smart. He's very proprioceptive, but there's levels to this. So is Russell Westbrook. So is James Harden. So is Luka. There's a lot of really, really smart basketball players. I'm saying Rajon is on a different level than LeBron. That's it. Kobe's really smart too. Michael Jordan was really smart too. I'm saying in my lifetime, there's 4 players, and those are those 4 players. Okay. There might be a fifth that I'm not thinking of, but it ain't LeBron. Okay. So I would make an offer to Chris Paul. I would be the first call to him, and I would tell him, we got a roster spot open for you. We would love to come and have you come here and play. We would love to have you play. If nothing else, him playing would immediately put Emmanuel Quickly in place. It would also help Scottie tremendously. I cannot say this enough. It would transform Scottie's career. Like, you may pay him $2 million to come here, $3 million to come here, and you may pay a little bit of a luxury tax bill because you'll be over the tax. But I think what he would deliver in return in terms of boosting Scottie's abilities and making everybody around him better, and maybe even changing the course of Jacoby's career, infusing him with confidence, challenging him, etc. I think Chris Paul could deliver $50 million worth of value. And also, let's not forget, he's a Hall of Famer. He's a top 75 player of all time. It wouldn't be so bad to have a player with that kind of pedigree, that type of knowledge going into the playoffs. I think he would add so much. Kyle Lowry, also a really smart player. I'm just saying, really smart player. Anyways, let's move on to Day'Ron Sharpe. Look, I've already devoted an entire live to why Day'Ron is amazing. You can definitely go watch it. My reasons for him have not changed. What has changed is the date. December 3rd is the date today. And on December 3rd, I have to tell you, on December 3rd, Day'Ron Sharpe is officially eligible to be traded, which is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Day'Ron Sharpe is eligible to be traded. And I think that the Raptors desperately need a Day'Ron Sharpe. And if the chat is to be believed that, that Jakob Poeltl is not playing tomorrow, well, then Day'Ron Sharpe is even more needed. Because if this is going to become a regular occurrence with the Toronto Raptors, where Jakob Poeltl is not going to play games, back-to-backs, etc., well, I cannot just guarantee myself 10 losses a year because Jakob Poeltl is not playing. I just can't do that. So that's the kind of challenging part at this is these ads are crazy. So that's kind of where I'm at on this Day'Ron Sharpe situation. I mean, he's a former teammate of Scottie Barnes. To those who don't know, obviously, former teammate of Scottie Barnes, has a natural chemistry with Scottie. He's a good screen setter. He's an evolving shooter at this point. Day'Ron is an evolving shooter. And I think that he would just fill such a huge need because number one, he would probably, presumably, I think one of the reasons the Raptors maybe wouldn't want to do something like this is maybe they're happy with what they're getting from CMB, right? Tariq saying big game tomorrow, Scottie versus Luca. Well, it will be a less of a big game because Luca is not playing, according to the chat, and also Jakob Poeltl is not playing, which means we might actually get to witness the dominating show. Scottie Barnes versus DeAndre Ayton going to be the matchup tomorrow because the Raptors end up starting Scottie at the 5. I mean, Scottie at the 5 might not be the worst idea. I don't think Day'Ron Sharpe can do I don't think that DeAndre Ayton can do jack shit to Scottie Barnes. I think Scottie going to clamp him, strip him like 8 times. So that should be interesting. I was doing a lot of victory lapping on the Scottie Barnes thing, man, yesterday. I'll be honest with you. I was. And I ended up watching something that was very interesting because somebody forwarded me this, and it was this video that I had almost completely forgotten about from almost 3 years ago now. And it was called the I Investigated Scottie Barnes's Work Ethic Issues. Do y'all remember this video? Do y'all remember this video? Give me a W in the chat if you remember that video. If you have any recollection of it, vague or vivid, let me know if you remember that video. Saying WW. So I was looking back at that video because now it seems very absurd to question Scottie's work ethic. But at the time, apparently I was the one who was crazy. And I ended up watching that video yesterday, and I was thoroughly engaged, which I almost never am watching my own videos back. I'll be honest with you. Like, I don't like watching my own videos. I do it sometimes as a exercise in revision or an exercise in, just attempting to understand like what I was doing wrong. It was a narrative because of Nick Nurse. Nah, not really. So what I want to do right now, hold on, let me see if I can actually download this. That might be more useful than potential of running ads. Let me just see if I can do this. I'm actually going to check. Can I do this? I could do this. We'll see. It won't let me download it. Damn it, my own video and it won't let me download it. That's sad. Anyways. 2025 and no ad blocker. Yeah. Probably should have ad blocker. Could just turn ads off on that video. I definitely could. Cindy saying W. That was a very interesting video because it brought me back to that time. It brought me back to that time. It brought me back to the narratives. It brought me back to the video clips. It brought me back to what was actually happening. And I realized, my God, I'd forgotten so much of this. I mean, not that I'd completely forgotten, but I'd forgotten the details. I'd forgotten who did what. I'd forgotten who said what. I'd forgotten the quotes. It was a very interesting refresher in terms of just understanding. YouTube Premium is $13 a month. $13 a month. Dude, do you want to know my favorite streaming app? My favorite movie streaming app is, you guessed it, it is Tubi. Okay. Ad blocker is free. Ad blocker does not work on YouTube, dude. Okay. I got you. Anyways, so as a random bonus, because I know that a lot of you have forgotten, what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to let this run for the next hour. This video is over, by the way. So at 1 hour and 4 minutes, I am done talking about what I wanted to talk about. This is a clean break right now. Okay. You're using the wrong ad blocker. Can you email me and tell me what the right ad blocker is? My email is in the description. Can you do that? Okay. So what the next hour is going to be is a rerun. I'm doing that thing that old stations used to do when they ran out of content. They're going to run a rerun. I would also like to let you know that this live will end exactly around when the next one starts at 7 o'clock. So I got you covered. If you were looking for Rob to carry you through 4 hours, I got you covered. But the next hour is going to be a rerun.
It's taken a
And the camera is worse. The lighting is worse. I
lot of work.
look older. I don't know how, because the camera is so bad. I'm almost cringing at the look of this version of myself. I'm like, why do I look so disheveled? I know for a fact that something really bad was happening in my life at this time, but holy crap. So anyway, this is going to be, and there's a little bit of a faint buzz, but this is going to be a hell of a playback for people who have forgotten this moment in time. So shout outs to previous Rob from 3 years ago, caveman Rob, as a super yadded setting is saying here. And this is going to be a throwback to when the entire Toronto media was going at Scottie Barnes, and I investigated the work ethic issue. The amount of investigative journalism that went into this video has actually caught me a little bit off guard. So shout outs to former me. I will chime in at some point occasionally to come in and just kind of accentuate a point, but this is old me with my new mic, and this is me talking about the ridiculousness of the Scottie Barnes takes. You look older because of the goatee. This is not a goatee. I have facial hair right now. I think it's the lighting. Shout outs to the people who got me the lighting, man. Rob, you must have been filming a Kurosawa film at the time. What internet browser do you use? I use Chrome like a noob. Should I not be using Chrome? Anyways, okay, take it away, old.
It's taken a lot of work to put all of this together, so please do hit the like on your way in. Would really appreciate it. So if you've been following this channel for 6 to 7 months, you have seen this entire story unfold. I wanted to take about 40 minutes today to use detailed clips, timestamps, to explain how this story came to be and how I believe that 3 to about 6 individuals in the Toronto media have systematically, calculatedly assassinated the character of Scottie Barnes by questioning repeatedly his work ethic, his professionalism, his maturity. I will also, after much digging and a lot of conversations, present you with what I think actually happened. And hopefully we, as a fan base, can correct the record on this story. Let us start first with the situation. The situation was that the Raptors were facing off against the Philadelphia 76ers. Scottie Barnes, triple-double watch on. Scottie Barnes gets injured. Joel Embiid steps on his foot. 2 days later, it doesn't look so good. He's in a walking boot. A lot of people speculate that Scottie's playoffs are done. But we get some good news ahead of Game 4. Not only has Scottie Barnes been named Rookie of the Year, not only was he presented that Rookie of the Year award by Vince Carter via video conference, but Scottie is going to be back. He's going to be back. He's going to come in, and he put this team on his back. He hustled. He defended. Yeah, he came up gimpy a few times. You could tell he wasn't even close to 70%. Shot struggled, but he tried. The Raptors win Game 4, win Game 5, push it to Game 6, trying to become the first team in NBA history and one of very few teams to push it to a Game 7 after being down 0-3. Doesn't happen. He struggles in that final game. Shot after shot, the Sixers give him. And the Raptors season ends on a somewhat high note. They overachieved. The vibes in the postgame were, to say the least, optimistic about what could happen for this young team, this blossoming team. There are a lot of players who seem to be on the upswing, and our minds as Raptor fans started to dance about what would be possible with another offseason of development. With the benefit of hindsight, now looking back at the press conference that Scottie Barnes delivered, this 11-minute press conference, some of the questions seem to make a lot more sense. Some of these questions, when painted in the context of what would come, suddenly start to make they start to have a different meaning. But I want to play a clip for you from Scottie Barnes after his team was eliminated in his exit interview for the 2022 season, talking about what he planned to do in the summer. What did they want you to do?
Of course, it's really just about what you feel like you need to work on and improve. And they have the same mutual agreement. Really just come back stronger, develop on my shooting, keep continuing to work on my body, get bigger, stronger, just keep building.
Scottie, everything just seems so fast track for you. You go to high school, 1 year college, and then right into the NBA. Obviously, you're going to work really hard this offseason, but is there any sense of just kind of being able to take a deep breath and know where you're going to be next year and yourself?
Due to the terrible audio during these post-game scrums, I just want to say that this question was posed as, everything happened so fast for you from, high school, you go to the college, there's the COVID year, and, is there a sense of just having, this moment to sort of step back and take a breath? And this was his response.
I don't know. Just keep putting the foot on their neck, keep going. I don't know. Keep winning. I already took my deep breath. It's time to keep going.
I already took my deep breath. It's time to keep going. Put a foot on their neck. I think that it is a very important thing to realize that when a lie becomes so prevalent, it's good to trace the genealogy of it. After I watched that interview, my biggest concern, and I forwarded this concern on, was he needs to take a break. He needs to relax. He's coming off of an ankle sprain. It's a very severe one. He obviously played through it. I did not agree with that decision. Him playing in Game 4 was not something I was thrilled about. But, he pushed through. He showed toughness when his team was down 0-3. I mean, how many players come back with their team down 0-3? I think most people would have thrown in the towel. I'm not 100%. No one would blame him for not coming in. He comes in and, instead of taking these months off after a rookie season in which, let's just be real here for a second. Montverde season ends. He works insanely hard during the season. He comes back to Florida State a different player. Florida State season ends. He continues his studies. Then he goes right into pre-draft prep. He comes into the pre-draft process a much better player than he left Florida State. That's why he shot up the draft boards. People were impressed by the progress that he had made since Florida State season ended. Florida State season ended, March Madness, right? When was he drafted? June? That's a few months. This was the growth trajectory of a Scottie Barnes. This was the work ethic of a Scottie Barnes. And this is what impressed the Raptors so much. His willingness to be great, his willingness to put in the work, and his desire to win, the competitive spirit. So during the summer, we heard lots and lots of updates about Scottie Barnes. And this is the summer in question, the summer in which he apparently didn't put in the work, and the summer in which he didn't show the professional attitude. So throughout the summer, we heard from various Raptors insiders. We heard from Scottie. We heard from his trainer. We heard from other players. And everything was pointing to Scottie is about to take a massive leap forward in year 2. He's put in crazy amounts of work. The entire offseason, my entire worry was, is he pushing himself too hard? He's going to crash. He's going to crash. He's going to get injured. Something is going to happen. And every time that I presented this concern to somebody, it would be, well, Scottie's a special athlete. Scottie doesn't, he's young. He can recover. He has faster recovery. He's a very special human, etc., etc. My entire insistence was that he take a month off. He didn't take that month off. He never stopped. He kept going. I think he took maybe 8 to 9 days after the season ended, and he was back in the gym. He was working. Same guy, by the way, who got drafted and was in the gym the next morning. That same guy has work ethic issues. I call bull. So this is Nick Nurse talking after the draft about Scottie being in Toronto.
Regular roster players just around the facility
Yes.
today. Why was it important for them to be here today?
Well, first of all, it's important for us, and it's good for us. It's good to see him around, right? I think that there has appeared to me this summer, not only today, but a lot of these weeks here since we've broken up, there's a pretty good closeness with this group. And it was good today. We had Pascal and OG and Scottie all on the floor today working out with each other at the same time. And that was exciting to kind of watch them kind of go at it a little bit. And I think that's, you know, both sides of the ball. That can only help them playing against each other, similar sized athletes and similar sized positions. And they've got to guard each other and they've got to try to score on each other and things like that. So that's good. But mostly it's just, listen, our guys, like, rightly so, they're proud to be Raptors. They love the organization. They love to be here. And I think it's cool that they're here and poking their heads in, wondering who's going to be joining them, right? Who's going to be joining them. So it's good team spirit. Team feels really good right now. So it's exciting to see.
Everything was going perfectly. Everything was going to plan. Nick Nurse himself would later say that when observing Scottie Barnes, he said, wow, he looks like a completely different player. He looks great. He's impressive. He looks great. This was just a month and a half or so after the season had ended, 2 months. So the work was there. Scottie's trainer, Brian Macon, went on Aaron Rose. I believe when he's speaking to Aaron Rose, he said a month after the season, he was already a completely different player in terms of his body, in terms of his physicality. And he reiterated the same thing with me. So the work was done. Was it the work they wanted? We're going to get into that. Now, one of the frequent critics of Scottie obviously has been Doug Smith. I think he's been beating the drum the hardest. There have been others, obviously, J.D. Bunkus, David Thorpe, William Liu, Blake Murphy. You know, he repeated some stuff, although he and I cleared the air on that one for sure. Sid Sixero, Jack Armstrong. There have been a lot. There have been a lot of people who have, you know, stoked the flames, so to speak. But I think it's important to realize, what did they say at the time and how did their opinion change? I think it's important for opinions to change as evidence changes. But it's one thing to say, you know, hey, you know, he worked really hard, but I'm not happy with the season he had. And that's okay. That's not saying much. You know, in Nick Nurse's, you know, I think he had a Nick Nurse Foundation golf interview, and he was talking about various players. He talked about the work that Delano Banton was putting in, how much he loved Justin Champagnie. Oh, I love Justin Champagnie. Same Justin Champagnie who was asking out a few months later, same Justin Champagnie who couldn't get on the court. He talked about the growth that these guys had. He said, you know, there's so much depth. There's so much depth. You know, Malachi looks great. Delano looks great. David Johnson's got to keep working. It really gave you this hype that, oh my God, all these young guys are developing. Nick Nurse was on record saying Precious Achiuwa was working so hard. So hard. He was going so hard. He's approaching this offseason with reckless spending. Y'all remember this? You remember this, right? That was the observation then. But with the benefit of hindsight, observations change, memories change, history changes. But it doesn't really change, does it? For instance, you meet somebody, you're mystified by them, you're smitten, they're beautiful, right? You go on a date with them, you love them, you tell all your friends, this is the girl I'm going to marry, this is the girl I'm going to marry, she's so beautiful, she's so charming, these are all her great qualities. 3-4 months later, it's on the rocks. So what do you say? You know, I always knew something was wrong about her. I always knew, you know, something was off. I got that feeling early on. Why don't you talk about it then? That is revisionist history. That's bullshit too. You shouldn't do that. You never learn from your lessons if you always do that. This is Michael Grange's article. I'm going to go into some quotes. This is a 22-minute read in which he glowingly talks about Scottie's offseason for Sportsnet. Faster, Higher, Stronger, Happier by Michael Grange. Can you hear me laughing? Here are some select quotes. I'm going to read them out for you. Barnes' willingness to do the work only captures one part of what makes those familiar with him so excited about where all of this can lead. At the Raptors training camp in Victoria, one of head coach Nick Nurse's guests was former University of Victoria and Canadian men's team head coach Ken Shields. Now 76, Shields is one of the most accomplished coaches Canada has ever produced in any sport. He won 7 straight titles with UVic and had several players represent Canada internationally, was pivotal in early development of a promising local kid named Steve Nash, and was a sought-out clinician and consultant for years after his retirement. He suffers no fools and sees everything on and off the court through the prism of how it affects team success. After 4 days of watching the Raptors practice behind closed doors on the floor that bears his name at the university's athletic center, Shields shared his thoughts on Barnes, and tellingly, it wasn't Barnes' size or athleticism or skill that impressed. Instead, it was the harder to measure attributes that are so crucial to elite performance. Quote, "Sometimes talent gets in its own way," Shields told me. "It's not getting in Scottie's way. He's devoted to learning. You can see the concentration is very, very high in practice. His mind's not drifting. He's attentive. He tries to do what the coaches are asking him to do. He's committed. That's what I think is so important. His work rate, his concentration. He's taking charge of his own talent by the quality of his effort. He wants to excel, and with this talent, the universe is open to him. It's beautiful to see." Another quote, "From the beginning of May until the end of the NBA Finals, Barnes trained twice a day." Let me repeat that. Twice a day with Brian Macon. On top of strength workouts he did separately. It was a heavy load. But then again, Barnes had a lot on his to-do list. The beauty of Barnes is that talent and his mentality lend themselves to so many different on-court possibilities. He's been compared to everyone from Magic Johnson to Scottie Pippen to Draymond Green. Macon uses another Hall of Famer, Jason Kidd, for reference. Quote, "Training Scottie is fun," says Macon. "It's like training a point guard, a small forward, and a power forward all at the same time. We just had to be very organized in how we approached it. But that's what's exciting about it. Because in 2 or 3 years, how do you defend a guy like this? How do you stop him? Especially since at his core, he's an energy guy. He's an offensive rebounder, run the floor type guy. You can't just double him in the post or trap him in the perimeter and get the ball out of his hands and forget about him. He's got so many ways in which he can contribute to his team. He doesn't need the ball all the time." I encourage you to read that article. If you follow us on Twitter, I did reference that article and link it, and I'll definitely link it in the comments afterwards. It is a glowing review, which is full of quotes from people in the inside of the Raptors, including Fred VanVleet, who cited Scottie Barnes' work ethic, said professionalism. He doesn't complain about anything. So it seems like these are all really glowing reviews about Scottie Barnes, right? Like, so far so good. Like, we're in training camp right now. That's where that was from. That was training camp. UVic, right? Raptors held their training camp in BC. So that's where we were at training camp. That means the offseason work had already happened. They had a chance to look at him. It wasn't like those Zion situations where, oh, he came into, the offseason, he came into training camp out of shape. Nope, none of that. That never happened. He came into camp looking great. Everyone was glowing. Nurse was glowing. His teammates were glowing. Michael Grange is glowing. So what happened? How do you attribute something that happened after the fact, which is, the struggles that admittedly definitely did happen, to work that was done before the fact when you reported on before the fact as being great? That's my question. Let us continue. So Barnes gets injured in training camp. This was my big fear, that the overload and excessive workload, coupled with the fact that he's had a series of ankle injuries already, would eventually result in him burning himself out or potentially getting injured. He gets injured. He gets the injury in training camp, but in a rush to come back, as Scottie always does, want to rush to come back. He always wants to play hurt. He played hurt so many times this year. He played through tendonitis. He played through things this year that most players would not play through. And if you got him into a room and said, is this true or is this not? Gun to your head, is this true or not? I think he would agree to that. I really would. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I believe he would tell you that for much of this season, he was not healthy. Didn't complain about it. referenced it afterwards a couple times. He mentioned, yeah, I had tendonitis, I had this, my body didn't feel right. But he always told you when he felt good. He always told you, he's like, my body feels right. Well, what does that mean? It means there's a lot of times this year when his body did not feel right. So Scottie goes down with the injury against Miami. We all remember it. He comes up writhing in pain. He, tried to jump over someone's head. He falls awkwardly. I think he was on pace for a monster game. I think it was like the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter, he already had 10 or 11 points. It was looking like the best game of the season for him. He's going hard. Home crowd, for him. His family's in attendance. Mom's in attendance. And he goes down with that injury. He comes up writhing in pain. He leaves the game. He does not come back. And I got to tell you, for the next month, it just didn't look right. He didn't look right. Did he try to rush back from it? I don't know. But on November 16th, Will Liu decided, hey, resident Scottie Barnes expert who's never met Scottie Barnes, never trained Scottie Barnes, let's bring David Thorpe on to assess Scottie Barnes. And this right here, this date, November 16th, 2022, mark it down, because this is the date that everything changed for Scottie Barnes because of one reckless 3-minute commentary.
It doesn't just happen because he's a McDonald's All-American and that he was Rookie of the Year. None of those things matter. None of those things help him score a single point, get a rebound, or pass for an assist in a game. You have to earn all of those things all the time. And as amateur psychologist, which it is what my degree is in from college, I think we all know that human nature is our species tends to relax after success. And I don't have any clue. I've never met Scottie. I have no clue what he did this summer.
Bingo.
But I have an inkling that it wasn't what Pascal Siakam did. It's not an accident that those players that run the league are killing themselves in the offseason. And I know, Will, you know that I was able to see a little bit of what Pascal did this summer. I've witnessed other all-star level players and including worked with some in the summers. I can almost guarantee you that's not what Scottie Barnes was doing this summer. I think he was hooping a lot. That doesn't 5-on-5 in the summertime where no one's really guarding anybody. It just isn't the same. And so what we're seeing, I think, is a reflection of that lack of urgency in his off-season work, whatever it was that he was doing. And then the other thing I think is happening is I don't remember anyone complaining about Scottie in the first 3 weeks of the season.
No, not at all.
But it's a lot easier. You can be going 160 miles an hour in a Lamborghini if a professional driver is driving you. Well, that's what you had with Siakam and the way he was playing. You're talking about a guy that was legit MVP candidate, and he wasn't one of those MVP candidates like an Embiid, for example, who is destructing everything in his path, destroying it, and getting a couple assists here and there. Siakam was carrying everybody with him just because that's the way he plays. Mm-hmm. Giannis is the same, and some of LeBron's years he's been the same. Kawhi, you would never really say that, although I think Kawhi for some years became a very good passer. And so I think Scottie was just alongside that. And all of the Raptors have had to deal with that adjustment in his absence. He's such an irreplaceable force on both ends, Pascal is, as a facilitator, not just a scorer. In fact, I would argue he's probably more of a facilitator than just a scorer. And now you got to do it on your own. And I have not seen a couple things with Scottie. I've not seen the same passion and love for the game, the same energy. His ball handling skills to me have not progressed, and I thought they needed to. And then you could get down to the nitty gritty. Will he even though he's made a few more threes, he's not finishing nearly as well. Maybe that's a product of his increased muscle, which means he's a little bit maybe more gravity bound. Or that could change. Maybe I know he had a little ankle issue. I heard that maybe he was sick for a couple of days. The Raptors are dealing with some of that, I heard.
Yep.
So those things can be factors too. But I'm definitely not seeing the same incredible zeal for the game that I fell in love with the 1 year he played at Florida State. And that's really what made me, I think, look mildly smart last year. Is that's exactly what he did. He just isn't able to do that. He can't get by people the same. He's not finishing at the rim the same. His not mid-range, his what I call second box scoring isn't the same. And I feel like he's trying to be, he wants to be an all-star. Well, who doesn't want to be an all-star? But what are you doing in your offseason? And then what are you doing day-to-day now and then in games to earn that? It takes a lot of work, and I don't know that he's putting that time in.
wow, this is so irresponsible. So many thoughts. So many thoughts. Now, I glossed over a part of this that, quite frankly, I shouldn't have, and it's my bad. That in the offseason, there were rumors, not rumors, confirmed rumors, that Kevin Durant wanted out of Brooklyn and that the Raptors were interested. First person to say it was me. Scottie Barnes was not on the table. Phoned a friend literally the day the rumor came out, and I said, tell me they're not thinking about Scottie. He said, not a chance. I went on Basketball Zone and I said, Scottie is not going to be included in this. He's not on the table. Week later, 2-3 days later, I started hearing everyone say, Scottie's not included, Scottie's not included, Scottie's off the table in all Durant talks, and we all breathed a sigh of, whew, thank God. Some of us did, not all of us. Some of us went on the record and said, no, I would include Scottie Barnes, including William Liu. William Liu said, and I quote, I would lose 3 nights of sleep, but come on, it's Kevin Durant. It's Kevin Durant. It's Kevin Durant. Oren Weisfeld, no disrespect, Oren. You know, if you ever watch this, someone says I'm calling you out. I'm not calling you out. This is just an opinion. You had an opinion that Jalen Suggs was the pick initially. Then you had an opinion that, you know, and this is a direct quote from Oren Weisfeld, Raptors media guy, I believe, for Raptors Digest, said, I would include Scottie Barnes. I wouldn't feel good about it, but I would do it. Okay, so obviously there were some in this media space that said that the Raptors were overvaluing Scottie, that the idea of potentially getting a Kevin Durant and all that stands in your way is this rookie of the year who put up 15 points per game. You don't know what the hell he's going to be, but you still think he might be Draymond Green or something like that. That's not worth holding off on Kevin Durant. It also created a massive controversy, in my opinion. And if you really want to understand what happened between the kumbaya vibes of the offseason and the season, the reporting on Kevin Durant and all the rumors that leaked out from Clutch Sports and the Brooklyn Nets are, in my opinion, what happened to this team. Because suddenly, think about it. You're Fred VanVleet, you're Pascal Siakam, you're OG Anunoby, Gary Trent Jr. You're looking around, you're saying, so we're on the block, but he's not? You average more points than him, been here longer than him. Why is he not on the block? You don't think there's some sort of, looking around? Imagine if tomorrow a rumor came out, you know, everyone is on the block for the, everyone's on the block for the Detroit Pistons except for Jalen Duren. Everyone. Suddenly Cade's like, wait, I thought I was the franchise guy. What happened here? I'm on the block for Kevin Durant, but he's not on. Suddenly everyone's going to look at Jalen Duren a little bit differently. Like, why are you everyone's favorite? Why are they holding you above us? It's important to realize that these news cycles, they do have an impact. Players do read this stuff. They do read Twitter. They do read Instagram. Regardless of what Fred VanVleet says of shutting down the media and shutting down social media and stuff, he hears all of it. And he knew damn well that if it came down to who the Raptors were going to prioritize, him versus Scottie, he lost that war before it even started. I think some people were a little bit shocked that given the season that Pascal Siakam had, that he would go out the door for Kevin Durant before Scottie Barnes. Now, how true that any of that is, I can verify it's true, but, you know, we'll never know for sure. Unless you get Masai Ujiri and Sean Marks on an interview one day together and say, what was the holdup on the Kevin Durant deal? And Sean Marks says, we wanted Scottie, and Masai's like, I wasn't going to give you Scottie. Then you'll have your 1000% confirmed proof. But up until, you know, that happens, this is exactly what happened. All right. Now, I say this to say that what follows next is a lot of media people looking at Scottie Barnes as, you're the reason we don't have Kevin Durant. Okay? That's a lot of pressure to put on any second-year player. Okay? Because I'll tell you right now, if this story was, hey, Cleveland Cavaliers fans, Evan Mobley is the reason you don't have Kevin Durant, and Evan Mobley comes out and averages what he was averaging earlier in the season, he was struggling hard to start the season. People weren't talking about it because Donovan Mitchell was carrying that team, right? but he struggled mightily. And suddenly you're Darius Garland, you're Isaac Okoro, you're, Jared Allen. You're looking at this guy like, you're the reason we don't have Kevin Durant. You, Mr. 11, 12 points per game, haven't taken a big step up. You are the reason we don't have a top 3 MVP candidate to start the season. The guy who's carrying the Brooklyn Nets every single night. What? I think that would rub a lot of people the wrong way. Here's proof. Listen to this.
Start the clock, please. Here's what's on my mind this morning. The Raptors don't mess around, man. They don't. A couple of seasons.
This is
and then Scottie Barnes, who returned from a left knee issue a few nights ago, did not start the game, which is weird because the reigning NBA Rookie of the Year usually starts games.
It was a little different, for sure. It was alright. I don't know. It was alright, I guess.
It's all right. I'm sure the Raptors were easing him into the lineup slowly. Is this a major story or much ado about nothing, do you think?
I think it's
wait for it.
Sid, and as you point out, Scottie Barnes has never not started an NBA regular season game or any game when he's healthy. The only time he's ever come off the bench was in the playoffs last year when he's coming off an ankle injury. And the the logic at the time was that they were bringing multiple people back from injury, Pascal Siakam most significantly, and they didn't want to have a starting lineup with multiple people having not been playing very recently. They thought it would be bad for the kind of cohesion and the rhythm. Gary Trent Jr. Also didn't start, and that was very much, I think, a performance-related issue with him. We'll see how long this iteration lasts. I suspect in Scottie Barnes' case, it's not going to last very long. There's message sending, and then there's, let's be real, he is one of our best players. So to the extent that it's a big story, I don't think so. I think, what we have heard regarding Scottie is, and let's be clear, he's not having a bad year. If you match up the season this year over last year, it's roughly comparable, weaker in a few areas, stronger in some others. But has he picked up? Has he kind of taken his game to another level in year 2? He hasn't. And I think, the Raptors are demanding that way. They have a lot invested in this guy. They have their future tied around this guy. They didn't trade Kevin Durant because of they believe in Scottie Barnes. Trade for Kevin Durant, I should say. So I think they're not above taking some steps to make sure they get him playing at the level they believe he can reach.
For sure. Let's always remember the Kevin Durant thing that didn't happen, that some people thought would happen, but they love Scottie Barnes.
Let's always remember the Kevin Durant thing that didn't happen because they loved Scottie Barnes. That's the condescension, right? That is the "we told you so." That is the "this is not what you promised us." That is exactly where this was. Now, very shortly after this, when Scottie came back, he did not play well. He obviously struggled against New Orleans Pelicans. There was all this talk. So what happens when things go bad for the Raptors is Doug Smith happens. On December 22nd, Doug Smith writes an article about Scottie's off-season work, cites various insiders within the Raptors organization were upset about the work Scottie put in the offseason. This tweet gets so much traction. It was hundreds of thousands of impressions of people sharing, blasting, supporting, saying "told you so," saying "piss off." Kyle Kuzma, then he retweets it. That one gets even further because he says, when he talks about people not having patience with younger players, it becomes a talking point for the entire NBA. And what really shook me was people talking about Scottie Barnes' work ethic who were opposing teams' broadcasters. You know what shook my world? There was a game where the Raptors weren't even playing and they brought it up. Scottie Barnes became a poster child for not putting in off-season work around the NBA because of one ridiculous person's opinion who had never met him, and one even more ridiculous person's assertion that this was true in a major publication like the Toronto Star. I was very upset on December 22nd. Honestly, it was highly irresponsible. Reading that article was disgusting, and I got very upset about it. So what did I do? Did I sit on my hands? No, I didn't. On January 3rd, Blake Murphy Tuesday, I believe, I believe it's January 3rd, Blake Murphy goes on Blake Murphy Tuesday. He and William Liu cite, Scottie's improvement over the last few games, that he's playing more center. He's playing more like he did last year. Then they once again reference, Coach Thorpe and, his interview with JD Bunkus and his interview with Will Liu, in which he said, maybe he didn't put in the work. I get upset. I blast Blake and Will Liu on Twitter. Someone messages Blake and tells him to come on and have this discussion with me. We hash it out. We hashed it out. We talked it out. And I genuinely felt with the number of, let me put it this way, with the number of people in control who watched that interview, and I can confirm independently, without going into names, that a lot of the people who needed to watch that interview watched that interview. I can tell you that, okay? And it was 30-minute chat, and in the end, I just basically said, if you're going to talk about it, I just want to know how you know. Because I can tell you with certainty that he worked very hard in the offseason. Now, why can I tell you that he worked with a lot of certainty in the offseason? Well, number one, I tracked his offseason work very carefully. And, I was kept abreast of a lot of stuff that he was doing. And of course, on January 13th, I released my interview with Scottie's trainer, Brian Macon. And we talked about his, we talked about his ascent. We talked about how he's worked with Scottie. We talked about Scottie as a prospect, Scottie as a kid, Scottie in youth, Scottie at, AAU, Scottie at Florida State, why he chose. It was a great interview. And if you haven't watched it, if you're one of those people who just kind of got intimidated by the 50 minutes or 56 minutes that it was, definitely watch it afterwards. It's a good one. And he talks about the work that he put in the offseason. And it was, when I asked him directly, I said, people talking about his work ethic, saying work ethic issues. What is your response to this? He said, that's absurd. It's absurd. And he's been consistent about that. So the people who were there think it's absurd to question how hard he worked. Michael Grange in the preseason thought it was pretty I imagine it, at that point, if you had said, hey, Scottie didn't work hard enough, I think he would probably call it absurd. So when did it become not absurd? Let us continue on. So Scottie turns around his season. He has a much better second half of the season. The Raptors don't do well. And I thought, maybe stupidly, ignorant me, stupid me, childish me. I'm a big kid, at heart. I thought, okay, we put up, this one. It got like 6,000 views. We put up this one. It got 7,000 views. I can independently confirm 100% that every single person in the media space, or not every single person, but a lot of people in the media space and a lot of people in NBA media that I personally forwarded this to, watched this interview, got the other side of the story, and this is not going to become a talking point ever again. But I underestimated one man's resolve to double, triple, and quadruple down on a dumbass take. And that, of course, is Doug Smith. On April 14th, with the Raptors season over, and a lot of questions about why it went so bad, there's Doug Smith again with his whole Scottie didn't work hard, he's not professional. Here's some quotes. Here are some direct quotes. So to those of you who watched live as we did the, exit interviews and we broke them all down, you remember, players were asked about Scottie and, what their message to him would be and if they support him or whatever. And I remember, telling you during that video that this is going to be source feed for an article that is going to be, put out, that is going to be like, he didn't work hard. And Scottie, to his own silliness, and because he's I think he's just a good person who doesn't assume malicious intent. He's not political. So when he's asked, how have you gotten better? He says, I'm pretty much the same player. I don't know if he's trolling them because he knows the story they're going to write anyway. But I'm like, the minute you say that, because it's not true, obviously, like it's his own standards. He can say yeah, I haven't, taken the step up. It's him putting the onus on himself. He's not gassing himself up and saying, look, I got a MIDI package now. My post works better. I'm stronger. He's not going to sit there and pat himself on the back. He's not Fred VanVleet. He's not going to be like, my assists went up. My playmaking percentage went up. Basketball University thinks I'm one of the 12 most improved playmakers this year. He could have said that. He could have said all of that. He definitely should have, man. He should have. I wish he could have, but he didn't. He just, bluntly said, kind of the same player. Like, I do some things better. But so the quote was, just get in the lab. That's it. That is the only thing I ever tell him, guard Fred VanVleet said of his advice to Scottie Barnes. I can confirm that is not all you tell him, but okay. Scottie is going to be as good as he wants to be, as good as he wants to be as a player. I don't think there's anything he can't do on the court, but just be a gym rat, stay in the gym. This will speed up the process, and he's doing that. And he's doing that. So what's the deal? What is the story? OG Anunoby, just be himself, work hard every day. It's almost like this guy went, Control A, find all references to work and Scottie, and just publish them all in succession, misrepresent everything that everyone said in order to write my stupid ass story. Right? He's got Nick Nurse, the now fired Nick Nurse, quote, he's got to get a lot of time in the gym and continue to work on his offensive skills, ball handling, shooting, finishing, all the things that he can do to really put the pressure on teams as a scorer. It was a bit eye-opening to hear Barnes admit Thursday that he wasn't in good enough shape this season. Quote, I probably need a different level of conditioning for the way I want to play, he said. There is no question that Barnes possesses the physical attributes to put him among the top players in the league. But between now and September, we'll see if he's got the mental toughness to do it. No one has a clear answer to that question yet. Really? No one. Not a soul. No one who watched him beast on the Milwaukee Bucks in the fourth quarter. No one who watched him come out in every high leverage game this season and put the team on his back in fourth quarters. No one who watched him, flex on Kevin Durant. No one, there's no mental toughness there, right? Play through a bum ankle. Doug Smith, you wouldn't come to work on a bum ankle. Are you kidding me? We don't know if he has the mental toughness to put in the work, right? He just, by osmosis, became the player that he became. It's a complete fluke. He won Rookie of the Year. We don't know if he has the mental toughness to do anything, right? We don't know. It's like you don't know that I can walk. You've been watching me sit for 40 minutes. You don't know if I can walk. Maybe I can't walk. It's ridiculous, right? And I wasn't going to make this video, but honestly, this was the final straw for me. The Raptors will trade anyone. Nothing is off the table on April 22nd, which I believe is yesterday. That includes their best players, all of whom will be in play for the right offer. Fred VanVleet, Jakob Poeltl, and Gary Trent Jr. are going to be free agents. OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam will be eligible for contract extensions before the season begins. And Scottie Barnes, the NBA Rookie of the Year in 2022, is coming off a so-so season. Ujiri expects him to take a more professional approach to his second offseason. Quote, I think there's going to be a lot of adjustments he's going to do this summer and how he comes back in the future for the Raptors, Ujiri said of Barnes. You see the propaganda machine? Do you see how they did it? We're talking November 16th to April 22nd. They have systematically, over this period of time, by peppering in a tweet here, trust me, there's like hundreds of other examples. I did not want to make a 16-hour documentary about this. These are just some of the most glaring examples of how they did this. So to recap, we have a guy who has shown you the mental toughness to accelerate his development to the point where this zero-level scorer, sorry, Sam Vecini, you're just always going to have to own that quote. Zero-level scorer comes out, averages 15 points per game, wins Rookie of the Year, plays hurt multiple times throughout his rookie season, leads the team in minutes, is second as a rookie, second in distance traveled on defense per the charting data, plays 1 through 5, shuts down Nikola Jokic in a fourth quarter as a rookie, averages all-star, if not superstar numbers in head-to-head matchups against LeBron James, saves all of his best games in his rookie season and his sophomore season for some of the best teams, becomes one of the top fourth quarter scorers in the league. And on his own team, he is the best fourth quarter scorer on your team as a 21-year-old. Plays hurt repeatedly throughout this season and last season. Leads the team in minutes again his second season. But we don't know if he has the mental toughness. We don't know if he works hard. We don't know if he has the conditioning. This is when you are so delusional, so irresponsible, and quite frankly, so stupid that you don't stop and think, is what I'm saying potentially wrong, kind of wrong, or blatantly false? It's blatantly false. Now, as I promised, I'm going to tell you what I think happened. Okay? The Raptors have a history with second round guys, undrafted guys, late first rounders. If you look at the track record of players picked 20th to 60th, or let's call it 61st, which is undrafted, right? From 20 to 61, there are no guarantees about your NBA future. There is a bit of a sad thing which happens in the NBA draft every single year, which is that the amount of patience and the amount of leeway that a team is usually willing to put into you is directly correlated to where you were picked in the draft. Okay? It's just kind of how it goes. This is the nature of the beast. It's the nature of the contract, right? If you are picked first overall or second overall in the NBA draft, like a Jalen Green, who has not had a good first 2 seasons, like a Cade Cunningham, who has not had a good first 2 seasons, like a Jalen Suggs, who has not had a good first 2 seasons, injury-riddled, inefficient, turnover-prone. These 5 guys, 3 guys, you can add Marvin Bagley and James Wiseman to it to complete, the 5-person, situation here. These 5 guys are high lottery picks. Not only were they billed as very hyped prospects, not only did they come in with a whole great deal of buzz from the AAU circuit, college circuit, but the teams also invested a very serious asset. The value on let's say a rough value of a first or second overall pick is about $28 million. In a generational draft like this one, where Victor Wembanyama is at stake, it could be as high as $60 million. I'm talking open market value. It means if a team could just outright sign the player, what would they be willing to give in a first year? That's the value. The value of a second round pick in most cases is sub $2 million. So with every draft, it doesn't go like this. It actually goes a little bit like this. And if you find yourself on the other end of the slope, you don't have a lot of chances. Case in point, the New Orleans Pelicans, Dyson Daniels, Herb Jones. I could argue that Herb Jones was a better rookie than Dyson Daniels. They're both hell of a prospect, right? But I can also tell you that if Dyson Daniels really struggles next year, there's almost no chance he's not going to have his third year picked up. If Herb Jones had struggled as a rookie, add to the fact that he's a second round pick, he's on his last leg in the NBA on that second year. That's how short the leash is. Consider, for instance, how many chances the Raptors gave to Andrea Bargnani, or Rafael Araujo, or Terrence Ross, Charlie Villanueva. There are a lot of guys. Ed Davis. These are all lottery picks, right? None of them popped for the Raptors. None of them were great. They were okay. Some of them were more than okay. Some of them were less than okay. But they were given endless shots, right? Charlie Villanueva, of course, he was traded after his, rookie year, and he was traded for TJ Ford, and I understand that because he didn't fit with Bargnani and Bosch and whatever. But in all honesty, in most cases, when you invest a high lottery pick, typically, not only is there a first chance, there's usually a second chance. Sometimes there's a third, fourth chance. Consider the fact that we have guys like Josh Jackson who were picked 4th overall. We have guys like Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, who was picked 2nd overall. Neither of these guys achieved anything close to what we considered lottery value as players. But they were picked really high, and they kept getting chances. Anthony Bennett. If Anthony Bennett was not the 1st overall pick, instead he was like the 20th overall pick, 24th overall pick, he'd be out of the league within 2 years, right? If Malachi Flynn, this 28th overall pick, who has been given diminished and sometimes no opportunity within the Raptors offense, if he was the 8th overall pick or the 10th overall pick, there's no chance he's getting DNP-CDs this year. That is the nature of the asset. So when you pick a player 4th overall, like a Scottie Barnes, there is a certain leeway that is given to that player. And I think that it's important to realize that Scottie has exceeded the value of an average 4th overall pick by a lot. already. I think it's worth noting that just because he's a lottery pick, it's not that things were just given to him. Yeah, he started on day one. He deserved to start on day one. There's no doubt that he was one of the 5 best players on the Raptors team as a 20-year-old. None. He didn't start over someone. He didn't take anyone's spot. He hasn't given preferential treatment. I say all of this to say that the Raptors have not actually dealt with a top 5 pick in Masai Ujiri's entire tenure. There's not a single player. Case in point, the Raptors did not have a single lottery player on their championship team. They were the first team in NBA history that won without a lottery talent. The only 2 lottery players on their team were the guys they shipped out, DeMar DeRozan and Jonas Valanciunas, 9th overall, 5th overall, picked by Brian Colangelo both. Kyle Lowry was not a lottery player. That's why he was shipped. He was shipped out of Memphis, shipped out of Houston. Not a lottery talent, right? Lottery talents tend to stick around a little bit longer than they should. So when you have guys who are just scraping by and just dying to stay in the league, typically they have a lot more invested in just trying to do what the team is asking them to do, right? You just don't want to piss off your one employing option. You don't. Delano Banton, when you go to Delano Banton, you say, hey, Delano Banton, this is what we want you to do. We want you to work with this guy. We want you to be in Montreal this day. We want you to be in Houston this day. We've got a clinic for you in this. We're going to ask you to work with this player, this development player, that development player. You know what you say if you're Delano Banton? Yes, boss. Yes, boss. Because if you say no, and you think you know better, you have a time commitment issue, whatever, you might not be on the team next year. You might not get your option picked up. You might be playing in Turkey next year. Okay? So, when you're a top 4 pick, top 5 pick, you do tend to have a little bit more leeway. What I think happened, and this is just me reading the tea leaves, me basing this on about 14 different conversations that I've had over the last 7 or 8 months. No one has directly just come out and said it. But I think if I'm understanding everything correctly and just trying to find the overlap in the message, here's what I think happened. I think the Raptors had a certain plan for Scottie. I think they expected to control his entire offseason in the exact same way that they've been able to control Pascal's entire offseason in the past, OG's entire offseason in the past, Fred's entire offseason in the past, Christian Coloco's offseason for the next 3 years, Jeff Doughton, whoever. I think this is a team like a San Antonio Spurs that has gotten so used to drafting lower end talent and developing lower end talent that they don't know necessarily how to deal with someone who doesn't fit into that box. Now, this is a fair debate. Who should be in charge of Scottie's offseason development? Fair question. Why do we assume that the Raptors know best in all situations? Now, there's no illusion here that Scottie did not do what they asked him to do. They asked him to get stronger. They asked him to put in work, getting jump shots up. They asked him to, go to the Rico Hines runs. He was there. He was there. He was there. They asked him to come to Toronto. He was here. So he did meet them on a lot of their demands, right? But maybe, this is a maybe. I'm not reporting this. I'm just saying. Let me read the tea leaves here. Maybe there were a couple of situations where he had pre-booked himself for an engagement somewhere else with a particular trainer that the Raptors don't know. Maybe they didn't agree with that. Or maybe they wanted him to be one place, but he said, no, I'm already booked to go with this person, and I really believe in this person's track record. Now, I just want to clarify. He's not getting worked out by me, yo. Like, I'm not working on Scottie Barnes. You're not working on Scottie Barnes. He's not some bum. He's got NBA trainers who are qualified, have worked with other NBA athletes. And some of these people are known to him and have helped him get better from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3. These are people that he's worked with. The Jalen Green camp that he attended, right? Some of the runs that he attended. You didn't see other Raptors there, but these were his personal things. Jalen Green and him go way back. So if you're going to ask him to be in the Rico runs the same day that he's already agreed, 3-4 months in advance to be at the Jalen Green charity thing, then you as the Raptors are now facing a complete black swan situation relative to, well, OG never ever told us no. Pascal never ever told us no. Now, if Scottie comes out and averages 24 points per game after the offseason that he had, and he very well could have. I think he definitely could have. I think his skill work has developed so much. I think if put in situations, if he was healthy, he easily could have come out and averaged 20 to 24 points per game. See no reason he couldn't have. His skill work definitely took off. I see improved handle, improved bag, improved everything. It wouldn't have been the most efficient 24, yeah, fine, but he could have put up big numbers. At which point, I think the entire narrative would have been, look at how great the offseason development work is for the Raptors. Look how great they are at developing players. This is a team that's developed Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, and now Scottie Barnes. This is the guy that we thought was going to take, need I remind you that at the time of the draft, people genuinely had a question if he would ever average 15 points per game? Ever? Ever. They're like, he can't score. He doesn't know how to score. He has not one move. This guy can't score. He can't shoot. He can't score. How's he going to be on the NBA court? He was drafted for his athleticism, potential, downside, upside down the road, down the road. Like maybe by the time he's 24, 25, he'll develop into a Draymond Green type. Really? That's what we're talking about, right? So now he's come out 2 straight years and averaged 20 points, average 15 plus points per game. Efficiency dipped a little bit this year. Volume of 3-point attempts went up. I see flashes of development and great work ethic that have come out. But let's just say he had a really successful year. What would the entire story have been? Would the story have been, wow, Scottie just worked so hard? Or would it have been another notch in the belt for the Raptors offseason development camp? Another notch. Need I remind you that Pascal Siakam has been working with Rico Hines for like his entire career? Rico Hines was not an assistant coach for the Raptors. He was an assistant coach for the Sacramento Kings. But the Raptors get all the credit for Pascal Siakam's offseason development. Maybe because they okayed the Rico thing, maybe because they knew Rico. And, Rico is very well known through the 80s, 90s, 2000s with the basketball circles, not the 80s, 90s onward. He's very well known. So maybe there's some of that. So Scottie struggles, and the immediate thing is, see, we told you to work this way, you didn't work this way, and now you're struggling. So next season, we want you to, become an OG and become a Siakam and become a Van Vliet. Compound the rumors that he was the one guy held off the table for the Kevin Durant stuff, and you might start to see a lot of these undrafted, second round, late 20s guys start looking at him like, why is he not doing the same thing that we did? Well, simply put, he's pretty much a max player right now. If he was to hit free agency tomorrow, he'd be a max player. I can't say that about any other Raptor player on this team in their second year. Fred VanVleet would be lucky to catch on with a second contract. He was in the G League. Pascal Siakam was, averaging 6 points per game. He was also in the G League, right? OG Anunoby started. He was great. I think he would have definitely, some competitive offers after his first year, but none of these guys were rookies of the year. None of them. So I think that this is a two-way problem that requires a mutual solution. And the solution is you cannot treat him the same way that you treat DJ Wilson, Justin Champagnie, David Johnson, Malachi Flynn, Delano Banton. He's not that type of prospect. He's not that type of talent. Teams have to learn how to balance in the modern NBA. This is not the 80s. You can't just yell at guys in the public space and, blast them that way. Very few players are that coachable. I think Scottie Barnes is a remarkably coachable player. And I think that he has shown over and over again that he is definitely committed to getting better. But you're going to have to work with him, not against him and not over him. You're going to have to work with him, because every single team that has drafted a rookie of the year type, a potential superstar, and let's agree to disagree if we don't all agree right now that Scottie's going to be a superstar. I'm open to that. There's not one part of me that thinks he won't be, but let's assume for a second that he's not going to be a superstar. Let's just say he's going to be like a 4 or 5 time All-Star, like maybe an 8-time All-Star. Okay, he won't be a superstar, won't be a top 5 player, whatever. But as a super high lottery pick, as a guy who's a McDonald's All-American, 3-time 3-time gold medalist, a guy who comes in with all this pedigree, all this hype, whatever, I think you have to appreciate that he's so humble that he was willing to play fifth option. He never complained about it. He's willing to guard hard. You never complain about it. How many young players don't play defense? Seriously. Look around. Shaden Sharp, does he play defense? Ben Mathurin, does he play defense? Paolo Banchero, does he play defense? None of these guys play defense. Scottie's trying, man. I think you guys really, if you're among this fan base and you feel like, this guy's spoiled, does too many commercials, I think you're spoiled. I think you're spoiled. I really do. Because it's a very rare breed of a guy who is this highly touted coming into the draft, wins Rookie of the Year, and just wants to just work. I think the Raptors will have to find a way to adjust their approach, and he'll have to meet them halfway. But you're never going to be able to control his entire offseason the way that you control, Christian Coloco's. They aren't the same players. They haven't. You just can't. And the Raptors should know this. The Raptors should know this because you know what? They treated Kawhi Leonard very differently than they're treating Pascal Siakam. Very differently. With Kawhi Leonard, it was, what do you need, sir? Oh, you need a game off? You need 2 games off? Okay, sir. Okay. Why? Because you're not dealing with a sometimes all-star like DeMar DeRozan. You're not dealing with a guy. You're dealing with an all-time great in Kawhi Leonard. You're dealing with, a finals MVP in Kawhi Leonard. You're dealing with one of the 5 best players in the league. You had to adjust. So the Raptors, it's not a foreign concept to the Raptors that based on who you're dealing with, you're going to adjust your approach a little bit, right? All of these players, they have their trainers. They have trainers, they have nutritionists, they have friends, right? The only question I ask is, did he put in the work or did he not put in the work? He put in the work. He 100% put in the work. 2-a-days? No break? Come on. Scrimmages all over the world, doing with this trainer, that trainer, that trainer. He put in the work. You can argue it didn't go your way. Okay, here's my question to you. Fred VanVleet's your guy. He probably did exactly in the offseason what you wanted him to do for the most part, right? You pre-approved everything. He shot 33% from the 3. How do you explain that? He did all the work you asked him to, and he shot worse than probably he's ever shot. For most of the season, it was the worst he's ever shot in his career. So did your offseason work develop him? OG Anunoby. In 5 years you've had this guy. 6 years you've had him in your system. And all the, Raptors developed OG Anunoby. You still haven't fixed his balance issues. You haven't fixed his ball handling issues. He still can't dribble the basketball without charging over somebody or, losing it. So maybe Scottie Barnes, the guy who was a 0-level scorer who ended up winning Rookie of the Year, most of it without your assistance, most of it working with Brian, working with maybe this guy knows a little something too about his development. And maybe you need to work with him. And maybe there needs to be more of a partnership and less of a dictatorship. So this is where I'm going to leave it. Thank you to the 182 of you who watched this. I have a lot to do today, but I wanted to talk about this. I wanted to explore it. And I just wanted to say that Scottie is easily my favorite player in the league. And he did not become that by accident. It's not some blind favoritism. I genuinely appreciate everything he's about, not only as a person, but as a teammate and a basketball player. He is a very hard worker. I know that initially there was some shock, maybe some disappointment about how he was being reported. And now it seems to be very blasé. It seems nobody cares anymore. They're just used to it. They're used to him getting slandered, used to his work ethic, maturity, off-season work being questioned. And I think that that's incredibly irresponsible, and I would like the people who keep doing this to stop. I would like you to stop. I would like to ask you where you're getting your facts, and I would like you to stop it because the facts are on the wall. He worked very hard last offseason. We've gone over this 6 different times on this channel. I wanted to present, it's one thing for me to say, hey, Brian, did he work hard? Yep, he worked hard. Well, of course he's going to say that. It's his trainer. I say he worked hard. Of course you're going to say that. You're a Scottie super fan, right? Scottie's going to say he worked hard. Of course he's going to say that. He's not going to. So when you're going to lie about somebody, usually it's beneficial to lie about something that can't be proven. Nobody other than Scottie Barnes knows how hard he worked last offseason. Nobody. There's not one person who was with him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, went on there are training sessions he had without Brian. There are training sessions he had without another trainer. There are training sessions like, but when you start piecing it together, when you start talking to all the people that were around him in the offseason, from this trainer to that trainer, to his friend, to this person, to that person, you piece it all together. This coach, that coach, Rico Hines runs this, that. And I've reached out to a lot of people, yo. I didn't just come to this conclusion haphazardly asking one person. I asked a lot of people. What was his focus level like? It was great. Did he come in early? He was there 40 minutes early. So everything I've ever heard from anybody who was around him was he worked really hard. And the only time I ever heard that he didn't work hard is from people who weren't around him. Okay. Thank you, man.
This is a very meta experience.
Thank you. Wow, and congratulations on your last video, man. I loved it. Go check out quickly, let me just plug this. This screenshot is very old. He's obviously come a very long way over the last 3 weeks, and he's even added a new video since then, or 2 videos since then. 2 videos since then. Now he's up to 4 videos. Go check out Goateology on YouTube. Help get this guy to 1,000 subscribers. I haven't checked your subscriber count in a couple of days now. Maybe you're already at 1,000. I apologize if you are, but yeah, go support that guy and check out.
In the same video, I'm sitting here like saying Scottie's gonna be great. Scottie's gonna be great, and then I plug this channel, Goateology. Shout outs to Goat, my guy Goat, and talking about how this channel is gonna be great. I should probably like just tell you what the Powerball numbers are going to be this week.
Check out this awesome video, which has like, I mean, honestly, at this point, the untold story of Scottie Barnes, I think he's crossed 60,000. Who gets 60,000 views on their first? You know, get out of here, man. You're too good, to be you're too good to be a first time YouTuber, man. So definitely check out that if you're looking for more. Obviously, if you want more insight into Scottie's work this off season, check out The Truth is the Truth, the video that I have with Scottie Barnes' trainer. And of course, big shout outs to Queensway Automotive Group.
No shout outs to Queensway Automotive Group. Not sponsored by them anymore. Okay. In exactly 5 minutes, we will be doing this live, which is me basically lining up what it means to be a superstar in the NBA, what I look for. Ultimately, how did I come to the conclusion that I thought this guy was going to be a superstar? Why do I think AJ DeBonce is going to be a superstar? Why do I think Scottie Barnes is going to be a superstar? Why do I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was going to be a superstar? Why am I so consistently high on these guys? Why am I lower on some? Why was I lower on Paolo? Why do I remain a little bit lower than superstar consensus on Cade, even though I will 100% acknowledge I've been wrong about Cade? And basically, what unites superstars mentally, emotionally, physically? What is it about them? So yeah, I understand there's still some people, you know, in the Toronto Raptors space that do not believe that they have a superstar on this team, and some believe they do have a superstar, but they don't think it's Scottie Barnes. They think it's RJ Barrett or you know, Brandon Ingram. So we'll talk about superstars. We'll talk about, you know, what it looks like, and maybe a little bit like what did Scottie show yesterday. Shout outs to all of you for going through that nostalgic blast from the past, man. Someone forwarded me that video yesterday on X, and I think it was Jonathan Convoy, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Jonathan, and I totally had forgotten about that video. And then I just very curiously just clicked on it, and I was like, I wonder what I sounded like. And I saw that Yeti beard, and I saw the angle, and I was just like, should I go back to kind of like looking down on the camera? It looks so much more authoritative, you know. Now I'm kind of like more like down from the camera. But nevertheless, it was a very interesting listen, and I was just looking back at it, and I'm like, man, this all ended up being true. So people will forget what you say. They will never forget how you made them feel. I will forget how you made me feel, but I probably won't forget what you actually said. And personally, I think what you said actually matters a lot more than how you made me feel. And hopefully that video was chock full of receipts. I'll talk to y'all later. I'll add timestamps to this video just in case for anybody watching it after so they can avoid the entire second half, whatever. But I'm actually curious to hear how people feel about this because I think a lot of people have forgotten what people did back then. And this is me just saying, even if all is forgiven, all is not forgotten. Peace, guys.